episode 8 of season 2 of ECig 101, and this one's all about the stock coil sub-ohm tank. So in the previous episode, we covered everything to do about the all-in-oneer. But for the stock coil sub-ohm tank kit, we've actually got to split the episode in half because there's basically two parts to a stock coil sub-ohm tank kit. You've got the mod, obviously, you need something to power the tank, and of course you've got the tank. Now a lot of companies, including the likes of Geek Vape, the likes of UL, the likes of Vaporesso, Smock, all the company names that you recognise when you walk into your local independent vape shop, when you walk into Totally Wicked, or when you walk into the likes of VPZ. A lot of these manufacturers don't just sell the kit as one part. You know, it's all in one box. You get the battery part and you get the tank part all in one box. A lot of these companies sell them separate. So you can get the Geek Vape L200 mod separately as a single piece with no tank included. You can get the Geek Vape Zeus stock coil sub-ohm tank, which usually comes with this, as a separate package, separate. This is the thing about the stock coil sub-ohm tank class. They are in two halves. You get the upper half, which is the tank, you get the lower half, which is the mod. There are, I can't even count how many tanks there is out there. There is literally, probably just under 100 stock coil sub-ohm tanks that are currently out on the market. Granted, some of them that you'll see for sale in the likes of Vaping 101 or ECig 1 here in the UK, they could be coming up to maybe 3 or 4 years old, but they're still being made and the coils are still being produced. Then you get the newer class of tanks like the Valerian 3 that we're going to have a look at very soon, the newer stock coil sub-ohm tank from the likes of Geek Vape, from the likes of the TFV12, TFV16 or TFV whatever fucking number it is now, from the likes of Smock. There is a lot of stock coil sub-ohm tanks out there, but they all have various things in common. And just to show you what they have in common, let's have a close-up look at two tanks from two competing companies. And these two tanks were roughly speaking, released at the same time. We've got one from Geek Vape. The Geek Vape one doesn't usually come in this package. This is a reviewer package sample that I got in. But we've got a reviewer, not a reviewer, we've got a what the fuck am I saying? We've got the retail packaging for the UL Valerian 3. So let's have a look at the Valerian 3 first of all, shall we? And we'll open this thing up, and as you can see, it's still sealed in its box. I'm actually going to be chucking this in for a giveaway later, not a box away later on for the, whoops, there we go. So you can just chuck all that to one side, don't need to worry about that. Here's the tank, right? So we pop that tank there, and we'll open up this, which is the Geek Vape P sub-ohm tank, which is one of the smaller ranges of sub-ohm tanks from Geek Vape, and we'll pop that there. So they look completely different. They are made by completely different manufacturers, and these two manufacturers, Geek Vape and UL, are usually going head to head when it comes to releases that they're releasing onto the market. It can be guaranteed that if Geek Vape release a new kit onto the market, UL are going to release a new kit within a month, and vice versa. If UL release a new kit onto the market, Geek Vape release one within a month again. They look completely different, but they both do the exact same thing. The only major difference between these two tanks is number one, the coils that they take, and number two, the capacity of the actual tank. Both of these tanks take air in from slots that you're seeing on the side, or in this case, slots that you're seeing on the bottom. Both of these tanks have variable airflow control. This one's got it on the side here, as you can see. So they both get variable airflow control. They both have the standard 510 connection, which means both of these tanks and other tanks like it will happily work with any other relatively high-ish wattage mod with a 510 connection on the top of it. Both of them are top fill. Come on. Oh, this one's a push thing. There we go. Both of them are top fill, which again is common in all of these tanks. And again, both of them take coils in from the bottom. So if I unscrew the P series tank here, we have got a coil that's in here. If I just pop this coil out, and again, this is a brand new kit, which means, oh, there we go, finally. So that's the coil that you're getting inside the P series. And if we open this up, this is where you're going to see a massive difference. There is a huge difference in coil types with these things. We unscrew that, and then unscrew this. Yeah, the Valerian's got a big, big coil. This is the major difference that you're going to be seeing with a lot of these tanks. Some tanks take huge, huge coils like this. Other tanks take smaller coils like this. Is there a difference between these tanks when it comes to the most important part, flavour? To be honest, not really. The only reason that you're seeing a coil of this size with this tank is because the Valerian 3 is rated to run at a much higher maximum wattage than the P-series tank you're seeing here from Geek Vape. Geek Vape tanks generally tend to run best at lower wattages, and the Valerian tank, along with the newer Crown series tanks, usually take bigger coils like this, which is much better run at higher wattages. But there's basic similarities between all of these stock coil sub-ohm tanks. They all take coils like this, they all fill from the top, and they all have a variable airflow control system. And again, they all have a 510 connection like this. There is not much difference between them. We're going to get more in to what these differences actually mean when we head back up top. But what we're going to do next is we are going to pop that in there like that. I'm going to pop this in here like that. This just push fits in like that. Bottom goes back on. But now what we're going to do is take a look at the most important part. Why are you not screwing on? Seriously? What's going on with you? Hold on, backwards, wind it. Have I pushed this coil all the way? Ah, you see I haven't pushed the coil all the way in because I'm an idiot. Right, now it's all the way in. Should screw in now. There we go. We're going to take a look at a coil, just a general everyday coil. This is a blister pack for a set of Crown 5 UL coils. So we're going to pop one of these out, and again, all of these coils for all of these different manufacturers all have several major things in common. They're basically made all the same way, and you can see how they're made if you very carefully take the damn thing apart. So what we need to do is we need to zoom in here. What you're seeing here is a little, see that red thing? That's silicone. See that tiny bit of wire sticking out there? And there should be another one down there. That's the negative. I think we covered this in season 1 from what I remember, but we're doing it again. Screw it. That's the negative, that's the positive. If we get a screwdriver in here and give this a quick nudge, what we're now doing is we're taking off the positive pin. And this is what supplies the positive charge into the coil. Just very slowly pop this off, just like that. And what you're now seeing is the positive lead going into that coil and the positive lead going into that coil. We can go further and take out the insulator, and what you're now seeing is the negative lead trapped in there going into the coil, the negative lead trapped in there going into that coil. And we can go even further, although I don't know if this is actually going to pull out correctly, but if I do this right, I should be able, probably not, maybe if I push it in from the top, hold on. Yeah, I think these have been crammed in pretty tight, but as you can see, I am able to very slowly give this a wiggle. Very slowly, come on, pull this out, and what you've got is one of the two coils in a stock coil sub-ohm tank. And all these things basically are is a very thin mesh piece like that, wrapped in cotton and stuck inside another bit of cotton that you're seeing here. This is the outer wicking. Focus in. That's the outer wicking, and the outer wicking is exposed to the wick holes on the outside. So juice goes in through here, soaks up this outer wicking part, it then hits the inner wicking, and that is what's surrounding the coil, which then leads in to the battery or power connections down there at the base. And that, ladies and gents, is the core part of any stock coil sub-ohm tank that you buy on the market. It could be from Crown, not Crown, it could be from UL. This is a Crown 5 tank. Now, personally, I like the Crown 5, but a lot of people, they're a bit leaky, right? I'll be the first to admit they're a bit leaky, the Crown 5s. You've seen the Valerian tank from UL, which is the Crown 5's bigger brother. You've seen the P-Series tank from Geek Vape. Smok, you've got the TFV8, which I think is still on the go, the TFV12, the TFV12 Baby, the TFV12 Prince, which I think was discontinued, the TFV16, and I lost track after the 16 came out. For Vaporesso, you have got currently 4 different stock coil sub-ohm tanks with different names on the market. You've got Aspire with their Aspire mouth-to-lung based tanks like the Nautilus and their larger direct-to-lung tanks. You've got every single major company has got a stock coil sub-ohm tank, at least one on their catalogue. They all look different, they've all got different names. Some of them might be rated for lower wattages, some of them might be rated for higher wattages, but they all have major things in common. For the most part, they're all top fill. For the most part, they take a general standard mesh-based coil that you've seen me strip apart down there. And for the most part, they're all generally 510 connected. In other words, doesn't matter what company you buy your stock coil sub-ohm tank from, they're all going to come with that connection at the bottom. And then you can team up your brand new tank with your existing mod or any other mod that's got a 510 connection at the top. Now, there is one major thing you've got to look out for when you're buying a stock coil sub-ohm tank. If you're buying your tank as part of a kit, you can ignore this last part. But if you're buying your next stock coil sub-ohm tank as a replacement for one that came in a kit, you need to pay attention to this last part. Some tanks run at higher wattages than other tanks. This is the Crown 5. This likes to run at round about 45 to 70-ish watts. I've got this running at 65 watts right now. That big fella from UL, the big blue thing, that's the Valerian 3 with its massive coil head, and it's got an even bigger coil head than the Crown 5's got. The Valerian 3, unlike the Crown 5, which is both made by the same company, UL, this is low wattage tank vaping. The Valerian 3 is high wattage tank vaping. That Valerian 3 is very comfortable running at 90, 100, 110 watts, almost double the power requirements of this Crown 5 that you're seeing here. Now again, if you are getting if you've got your first stock coil sub-ohm tank as part of a kit, you don't need to worry about this. But let's say you break the tank, which can happen because the tank part's made of glass. It's an easy mistake to do. I've done it countless times with stock coil sub-ohm tanks. They fell off the table in the studio, cracked the glass, that's the tank fucked. That's it, fucked. I need to go and get another one. But if you're getting a replacement tank, you need to make sure that whatever tank you buy has got a power capacity that your mod is able to give it. So let's say you get the Valerian 3, and the Valerian 3 likes to run anywhere upwards of 80, 90, 100, 110 watts. If you're running a single 18650 80 watt mod, don't get the Valerian 3 because it's going to struggle to power that tank. If you, however, have got a dual battery mod, like this Geek Vape L200, and it goes up to 200 watts, then you'll be more than fine running the Valerian 3. If you have a single battery 18650 mod, you're probably better off getting the UL Crown 5, which is more than happy to run at 45 watts, 50 watts or 60 watts. Top end is 70-ish for the UL Crown 5. This is the thing you've got to watch if you're buying a brand new stock coil sub-ohm tank to match up with the mod. You need to make sure the tank that you're going to buy it will work on the mod that you've already got. It will screw on just fine. They've all got 510 connections. But whether the mod's got the power to power that tank, you've got to look out for that. You've got to look out for that. The general rule is this: if you've got a single battery mod, in other words, your mod only takes one battery, the general rule is for those styles of mods, it's a maximum of 80 watts. But you've got to give that mod headroom. In other words, look for a tank that runs around about 60 or 65 watts, like the UL Crown 5. If you've got a mod with two batteries, general rule is 180 to 200 watt max. Any stock coil sub-ohm tank on the market with a 510 connection will work on your mod. That's the two things you've got to remember. Apart from that, that's basically it for the stock coil sub-ohm tank, folks. There are a lot of them out there. There's a lot of stock coil sub-ohm tanks out there. And like the AIO, they come with one major caveat. You're locked into that coil type for that type of tank, which means if the manufacturer stops making the coils for your tank, well, you're fucked. You need to go and buy a new one. But unlike the AIO range, like this, if they stop making coils for the Orion 2, this whole thing turns into a doorstop or a paperweight. With a stock coil sub-ohm tank kit, let's say UL decided to stop making the coils for the Crown 5. Okay, fine. Bin, still got the mod, buy a new tank. This is the one good thing about the stock coil sub-ohm tank kits out there. If the tank becomes obsolete, buy a new one, use the same mod. Simple as that. And generally speaking, these tanks are sold brand new for anywhere between £25 up to £35, depending on the manufacturer. Anyway, that wraps up episode 8, all about the tank. Now we wrap up this whole thing to do with AIOs and stock coil sub-ohm tanks with episode 9, all about the mods.